Hi everyone, Catherine here from Inky Finger Cat. I'm back with another using up my magazine kit, and I've gone back to the Kendra's card challenge again, number 19, which I did as one of the videos. I showed all the cutting and the organising. So if you go back into the playlist, you'll be able to find that one. I end up doing 3 cards from this. That wasn't the intention when I started crafting, but that's what ended up happening because I decided to do some foiling. And if I'm going to do foiling, I might as well do multiple projects at once, because if I'm going to heat it up, I might as well use it more than once. So I do end up foiling with the same plate 3 times. And the plate that I'm using is a stripe one from Spellbinders. I think it's called a stripe of colour or something along those lines. But it's a glimmer plate, and it does come with some matching dies, but I don't use the dies on this particular occasion. So I choose 3 of the sketches that I've still got to play with in order to do some of the glimmer on. 2 of them I apply the glimmer directly to pattern paper, and on the 3rd one I do one of the background pieces. So I've cut quite a lot of the waiting time out of this, and now we're on to the actual point where the heat, it's all heated up, the glimmer machine's all heated up. So I'm just going to I've pressed the button, and now I'm just waiting for that bottom light to stop flashing. That means it's ready, and I can take it off, and you can see there I've done a really good job of glimmering the actual plate itself. The sort of the top layer plate doesn't matter at all. I've done lots of glimmering onto it already. It really doesn't impact on how it works. It's just how it looks. So I think I'm doing sketch number 2, sketch number 5, and then I think it's sketch number 13. Yeah, I think it's number 13. Which I am just doing all the foiling. So during my Christmas in July series, I gave lots of tips and hints on how to bulk make cards, or how to make many cards with similar designs and stuff. This is a similar sort of idea. I am absolutely deciding that all 3 of these cards now are going to have the same glimmer plate on them. So they're all going to have something similar. So now I'm choosing the stamps that are going to be my focal image that I'm going to use on all 3 cards, because then I'm going to make it a little bit easier for myself. I'm taking the thought process out of it, which makes it a bit quicker. And yeah, pretty much just making it easy for myself. So I stick all my glimmer stuff off to one side to cool down. I keep them all separated whilst they cool down. And now I am going to do my flowers. Now, if I was sensible, I'd have stamped all 3 flowers at the same time and would have done that all in one go. But I'm not being sensible. So I'm not following my own technique of trying to speed up the process. I've speeded up the process as in I've took the thinking out of it. But what I am going to do is assemble each card individually, and therefore that means I stamp and colour and fussy cut all my flowers 3 different times. So you'll find that there's little bits of this video will get very sped up, because I am going to do the same process over and over again. So for this first one though, I am going to keep it simple, and I am just keeping it at 4 times speed so you can see what I'm doing, because I did decide I wanted to mask and stamp the flowers so that they look like they were coming out from behind rather than having them as separate elements. I do that again on the second one. No, on the 3rd card. I don't do that on the second one. I do, however, want the centre smaller flower, which I use as sort of like a separate set of petals. I do have those kept separately. So I choose to colour all of my flowers with my Pro markers or Stampin' Blend markers, the alcohol markers basically. So I've stamped in Memento. I have speeded this up big style, and I just choose 2 sort of shades of a similar colour. The Stampin' Blends make it a lot easier than using Pro markers, because you get a light colour and a dark colour, but I've managed to sort of understand which ones will pair well together even with my Pro markers. And this time, unlike normally when I fussy cut, normally I fussy cut with a little bit of border, but on these ones, on all 3 cards, I don't. And I do fussy cut right up to the black line, because I don't want the white border on it. Although obviously in that case it would have been a cream border, because I'd stamped onto cream. Right, we're into assembly mode now for this first card. So the design of the card, which is number 5, you can see there in the bottom middle of the sketches, is a dead simple one. There's a banner, there's an element, and there's a sentiment. And then there's a background panel of the pattern paper. Now, frustratingly, I did not notice at this point, it was only a little bit later I realised that where I had done the stripe foiling, it was slightly wonky, and I should have really looked at it properly and then cut it so it wasn't wonky later on. Never mind. I chose a sentiment that was already done in the stash. It's just a slightly different colour of pink, and I'm a bit like, ooh, does that look all right? It does look all right in real life. I just think on the photos it shows up more sort of red pink than orange pink, if that makes sense, but you know, it is what it is. So that finished off the first card, and I used a card candy in the centre of the flower just to finish off. I did keep these all fairly simple and very much in keeping with the sketches. So now we're going to sketch number 2, and this one I do slightly change because I end up putting it on a square card. So I choose to move the back panel to become horizontal landscape across the card rather than portrait. This time I've stamped my flowers onto pink cardstock, and I'm going to use a mix of pink and purple colours for colouring it in. I think that's light Melon Mambo, then light Blackberry Bliss, and then I go in with the dark Blackberry Bliss in the middle. I don't bother with leaves for this particular one, and again I just fussy cut straight out, so hence it's very speeded up because this is simple and it's nothing different from what I've done on the previous ones. So because I have chosen to do it differently in terms of keeping it landscape, and because the foiling wasn't quite to the edge on the right hand side of the panel, I did decide to switch the element over. So the element on the sketch is off to the left top side, and I went to the right top side instead. That was the major change that I made. I embossed that black back panel just to give it a bit of texture with, I think it's called Painted Texture. I think that's the name of it. It's an old Stampin' Up embossing folder, and it's a 3D one, so it's all different kind of gradients, but it just looks like Artex, if those of us from the 80s remember Artex. Now, this next bit, I did fiddle around a bit because I wanted a sentiment. I can't be bothered at this point in doing sentiments because I'm really conscious that this is going to turn into a long video because of the fact that I'm now making 3 cards. I've already put the glimmer machine on, etc. It probably would have been quicker to just stamp and emboss a new sentiment or foil a new sentiment by this point, because I have fiddled around so much trying to work out what I want to use, and I end up going for that black one with the gold that says "Have an Epic Birthday." That's a Dina Wakley press plate. I need to do some more of that one. That particular sentiment, because that's the one I'm going to use the most, is "Have an Epic Birthday." But I decided it didn't quite look right just as it was, so I did punch a banner, and I stuck this onto this. Again, hindsight is a wonderful thing. Personally, I think it probably needed trimming down a bit. It's a bit wide, but never mind. It's still fine. And for this one, I went with the black card candy just to bring that black in, because obviously I've now got that black sentiment. I haven't really got black anywhere else on the card, but I think it worked. Now this final one's a little bit more involved because it requires me to do some die cutting. I have to, for the sketch, it's got 5 circles going across, one of which with, on the thing, it's got a scallop border. So I go through a couple of different options. I choose a particular die, just as it's a circle die from a totally random set. And then I chose a bigger die for the bit that's going to be the scallop circle, but I end up changing up what I end up doing. And I go for a die cut piece that's already on the desk. So I could have saved all this time. I start off with this piece of foiled cardstock. I die cut this circle. It's too big, it doesn't quite work. So I'm a bit like, not quite sure what to do. Then I remembered I'd seen a die cut circle that was indeed smaller, that was in my little tray of bits and pieces. I brought in a little foiled piece that was in blue and rainbow, and I decided no, that wasn't quite right. So I decided to just start assembling. I inked up the two small lilac circles. Forgot the word for circle then. And then I immediately stuck down all 5 of the circles going across the panel, and decided instead of a circle inside that foiled cardstock, I would instead go for my stamped flower. I was always intending to use the stamped flower. I just wasn't quite sure whether it would go on top of the second circle or not. I decided not to bother with the second circle. The flower itself will act as such. And again, I used that mask because I wanted it to be a slightly larger focal element than just the flower. So I've added in 3 leaves stamped behind the flower. This time I stuck to the Blackberry Bliss as the main focal point. For the flower colour. Again, I used the light and the dark, and then I brought in just jade because I thought it worked better than the sort of more earthy green that I'd used last time. I thought this worked better with that pattern paper that was in there. There isn't much pattern paper, to be fair, on this particular card. It's just those 2 circles, but I think it still looks quite nice having that little bit of contrast. Now, I do end up again choosing a square card blank, and it takes me a little while to decide on the orientation of this card, whether I want it to be landscape as the original sketch or portrait, and which side of the card and which way I want it to face, etc. So it does take a little bit of fiddling around, deciding what I want to do, and part of that comes from when I bring the sentiment in. I try that Sending Hugs pink sentiment again, but it just is not going to work. And so I end up going with a black and white one. It just wasn't working at all. I have used a white card candy in this case for the centre of the flower, so actually having that white works really well. And normally I would want to decorate that white space behind, but I ended up just leaving it blank. So 3 cards, added foiling. Really, really nice to add the foiling because we all know I love the glimmer machine. And really nice to use that flower, the stamped flower, in 3 different ways to create the main focal point. I like these. I think these are really good cards. I am really happy with how they've turned out. I think hindsight's a wonderful thing, and sometimes we can make changes in our heads after we've seen the final thing. So that one particularly, I want to change the banner on it, but never mind. And I love this with the circles. It's not something I would ever think of doing. So this is why having something like Kendra's Card Challenge is really good for adding in a different element to your crafting, coming up with some new designs. So hope you enjoyed this. Please do like and subscribe. Don't forget to go and check out the playlist for my Use Up a Magazine kit series. But for now, thanks for watching, and until next time, bye bye.